On today's full story, we're going to be bringing you 0 Year, which is when the Riddler conquered Gotham. Now, this is a series that we covered a little while ago, 0 Year in multiple parts, and the general idea is that in the early years of Batman, Riddler took over Gotham and Batman had to fight against him. Sounds familiar, doesn't it? Well, I think it was the inspiration, along with Long Halloween, for the new Batman movie. So let's get into it and see what you guys think.
Gotham City, the year before the Justice League was revealed to the world and would come together to fight against Darkseid. It's a haven of crime, monsters, and the darkest scum in the earth. And as two criminals try to tackle a child for catching a fish, Batman rides up on a dirt bike, dropping both of them and grabbing the bag with the fish in it. He held it up to the child and told him, "You dropped your fish." "Thanks. He thinks you're dead, you know. He's been telling everyone that ever since he killed the city." "Good. He won't see me coming." 5 months before that event, Bruce Wayne is sitting in a torn mask, sitting on the roof of a parking garage with a truck filled with hostages, and Red Hood 1 pointing a gun at the car, with his entire gang standing by his side. Seeing no other option, Bruce Wayne reaches into his bag and he pulls out a grappling gun, as Alfred is yelling in his earpiece, "Sir, don't do it! It can't support the weight!" "It'll hold, Alfred." Bruce then hooks the grappling hook up to the truck and then to the crane nearby. He pulls the truck off of the building just as the Red Hood gang jumps out of the way in time. The truck then swings into a nearby bay where it and all of the hostages fall into the water. Bruce resurfaces, flipping off Red Hood 1. He then goes back to his hideout with his butler, Alfred, there, and Bruce explains the situation. The Red Hood gang is led by the faceless leader, Red Hood 1, and each of its members are faceless to each other, all blackmailed into helping him. They aren't even criminals half the time, just individuals that he can blackmail. Bruce continues, "It's a new type of crime. When I left all of those years ago, it was street crime running rampant. Now it's a hidden crime. Speaking of things that are hidden, Master Bruce, shouldn't you alert Gotham City of your return from the dead? I know you don't approve, Alfred, but Bruce Wayne is legally dead and he'll remain that way." "Master Bruce." "Alfred, I told you to call me Bruce." "I'm afraid I can't. When you first asked me to join you in this insane job, the truth is I was hoping to talk some sense into you. This is guerrilla warfare, Alfred, and I think I'm more effective like this." Bruce then puts some masks and tools into a bag before walking back into the main hall, where he tells Alfred he'll be driving himself today. And then when they open the door, they find Uncle Philip Kane standing there. "How did you find you? I've had a search going for you ever since you left. I should have known I only needed to watch Pennyworth. Care to go for a ride, my son?" Philip Kane explains that it is he who declared Bruce dead so that he could run the company properly and ensure that it didn't fall apart. The Kanes are not well looked upon in Gotham, but the marriage of Thomas Wayne and Martha Kane was something to celebrate, so he didn't want to see that legacy fall. He then wants Bruce to come back. He wants him to run Wayne Enterprises again. Wayne Enterprises is a staple of Gotham and it needs a Wayne at its head. He then pleaded with Bruce to at least just come inside the building and see what he's built. But Bruce told him, "No, I want to remain dead for now." And he apologized to his uncle and told him that that's just not who he wants to be anymore. Philip asked him, "Then who are you?" Bruce went back to his apartment in Crime Alley and he got his supplies for the next job, while Philip went to see his advisor, Edward Nygma. Philip begins to lay out the situation. "The city hates me for what we're building here, and the Red Hood gang insists on stealing from us." "The answer is simple," Edward informs him. "We need to kill Bruce Wayne." The Red Hood gang proceeded to take an entire blimp hostage, including Mr. Cobblepot. Red Hood 1 reaches into a crate and he pulls out a new Wayne Tech sonic rifle, but before he can use it, Cobblepot leaps at him, getting shocked by the helmet. Red Hood 1 laughs it off. "I know who you are. You're the vigilante that's been trying to stop us. You had me fooled. What is that, a fat suit? And aren't you 6 feet tall?" Bruce drops the coat and makes spines pop out of his forearms, and the Red Hood gang starts trying to fight against him, but he kicks them all back, and as they tear off his mask, he hides his face behind one of the thugs. Red Hood 1 taunts him. "Do you want me to throw you a Red Hood? Maybe show you my face?" Bruce pushes the thug aside, and while hiding his face, he slices Red Hood 1 in the side, and he makes a break for it. "That won't be necessary. I have your DNA." And then he jumps out the window, and using his magnetic shoes, he attaches to the underside of the blimp. He then moves into the maintenance area where he grabs the real Cobblepot that he left there, and he jumps off the blimp using a parachute. Back in his hideout, Bruce explains that he is afraid of what he sees because he is losing this war. The DNA that they got was useless, and now Red Hood 1 is taking over rival gangs in Gotham, almost to prove that he can and for no other reason. To top it all off, he now somehow has Wayne Enterprises weapons in his arsenal. Then Bruce notices Alfred isn't responding, so he tells him, "If you have something to say, then say it." Alfred tells him, "You're going to lose this war. You are doomed. Even if you are able to take down the Red Hood gang, there will be another one after them, and another one after them. This war might not be winnable, Alfred, but it's mine, and I'm getting tired of your skepticism. It's not the war that I take issue with, sir. I have fought in less noble wars than this one. What I take issue with is your cowardice. My cowardice? I'm out there risking my life to take down a gang that's rotting this city from the inside out. The city that my parents lovingly fought for. They fought in the public eye, sir. You are fighting as a ghost, while you let the name of Bruce Wayne and the Wayne legacy rot. The city is being run by a sad, angry man with no purpose. I think your parents would be ashamed of you. Bruce then grabs Alfred by the tie. Is that so? Well, what example have you set by hiding in your mausoleum, polishing the silver? Who's the real coward? Alfred slaps Bruce. They both look each other in the eye, and Alfred decides that it might be better for him to return to the manor. Once Alfred leaves, Bruce thinks about it, and he decides to call up his uncle Philip. He wants to talk to him. Philip has Bruce meet him in the museum at midnight, a place that they both went in Bruce's childhood. Bruce wanted to talk to Philip about the missing weapons and the fact that the Red Hood gang has taken them, but Philip was hoping that Bruce had finally decided to take the company. Philip asks him one last time and Bruce interrupts him. I'm sorry, Philip, I just can't have a public face right now. I can't explain it, but Bruce Wayne has to be dead. If you insist, Bruce. And then Philip hits a switch, turning all of the lights on. Standing in front of Bruce is a welcoming party assembled specifically for him with reporters and old friends. Bruce turns to him. What the hell are you doing, Philip? And Philip explains a story from his childhood, a story in which he was lost in a cave. He explains that he didn't want to leave that cave either, but his father came and dragged him out kicking and screaming. He even has a metal plate in his head due to that. But sometimes it's the best thing to have yourself thrown into the mix. Bruce couldn't believe that Philip just revealed him to all of Gotham, and he stormed off to the back hallways of the museum. That's where he ran into Edward Nygma in the Hall of Egypt. He confronts Mr. Wayne. The only way out of this room is through the Avery Wing. Bruce eyeballs him. Is that a riddle? Why would you say that? There is no Avery Wing. Sorry, I got carried away with the spirit of the room. But you know, Mr. Wayne, the Egyptians are responsible for some of the first board games. They sometimes ask to be buried with their games above their riches. My favorite has this design that makes it look like an Ouroboros, a circular beast that eats its own parts. Not that different from your own uncle. If he keeps going the way he's going, he'll have no arms left. Bruce thinks about it. No arms? Does that mean something, Nygma? Everything means something. Or should I think? You're saying that my uncle is giving away arms to Red Hood? Why would he do that? They're terrorists. I supposed, against my better judgment, that he gave away all of the small pieces to keep them away from the big pieces. Bruce then climbs up on the Sphinx itself to the window above everything because the Egyptian Sphinx are the only Sphinxes without wings. So, you climb up the head. He climbs out and he tells Nygma, try harder next time. Bruce then makes his way back to his apartment. Just in time for it to explode. Bruce grabs a shield off the wall and he blocks himself from the explosion with it. Then Red Hood 1 helps him up. You should never have come back here, Bruce. Then using the weapons in his home, the gang beats him down over and over until they are nothing but a blur in front of him. Red Hood 1 then explains, the night that you lost your parents, a lot of things changed in Gotham itself, not just for you. I remember my foster parents buying a lock for the door and the neighbors coming home with the Saturday night special. Because at the end of the day, people are afraid of nothingness, the randomness. That's the day that I came up with the idea for this gang, to wear the Red Hood to court the wolf, rather than hide. Eat us all, wolf. But there is one thorn in the Red Hood's side, and Bruce reminds him of that man. Regardless, the vigilante will be gone soon, just like Bruce Wayne. The gang then leaves Bruce there, bleeding on the ground, and once they leave, Bruce crawls over to a panel that unlocks his secret room and a back door out of the building. Bleeding as he goes, he drags himself to the forest, into an elevator, and into the back door of the Wayne Manor, where he collapses. Meanwhile, Philip confronts Nygma. You maniac! You killed Bruce! I barely knew him, and I could tell that he was a better man than both of us. No argument there. It needed to happen. I was pressuring him. He would have come around. Well, no, he wouldn't have. His parents were killed in an alley with a gun. He would have come for the company and taken it from you. I did you a favor. Philip prepares to fire his gun to kill Nygma, but Nygma says his final words. Kane. Philip hits the ground as magnets turn on in the room, affecting the plate in his head. Enigma tells him goodbye, leaving him there on the floor. Bruce wakes up the next morning with Alfred putting stitches into his body, all over his body. He was on the brink of death. The moment he wakes up, though, he gets up and Alfred tells him, no matter how much they disagree, he'll always be there to patch him up. Bruce Wayne walks through the manor. He hasn't been here since his return to Gotham, and he looks at all of the memories, the photos, and the good times from his childhood. During his walks, though, he comes across an orb, a piece of Wayne technology that his father was perfecting, and as he walks into the main study, tells it to show him. The orb then turns on and it shows him the massive holographic scale plans of a massive cave structure, one right beneath the manor because right beneath Wayne Manor is the lifeblood of the city. Then, hologram bats from the orb fly through the window and through Bruce Wayne Wayne's chest. Bruce sees what he has to be. He sees his purpose. He will become the Bat. He will become fear. Some time passed with the Red Hood gang continuing their reign over Gotham, but on one of their jobs, one of the men turned around to find all of his friends tied up to a sign in the shape of a bat. Then Batman swang in, grabbing him, informing him that his bat still needs a head. He has been trying to stop as many of the Red Hood gang's jobs as he can, but he's still failing to see a pattern. They're stealing chemicals and trying to cover it up with other thefts so it can get drowned out. If only Bruce could see their endgame. So he decides to do something that he hasn't done since the Red Hood gang blew up his apartment and apparently killed Bruce Wayne. It's time to go talk to his uncle Philip. Philip has been running Wayne Enterprises with Bruce Wayne missing and is to blame for the Red Hood gang getting their hands on the Wayne Tech guns. Philip is overjoyed that Bruce is alive though. He never wanted this to happen and things are getting out of control and it's getting insane. So Bruce asks him for access to the system so that he can see what the Red Hood gang is doing, and Philip willingly gives it up. After inviting Philip to come live at the manor for his own protection, Philip tells him no, and Bruce went back to the cave that he discovered and has been building up. Alfred climbs down the ladder, commenting that as long as there isn't a fire pole, he can manage with the ladder. But Bruce reassures him that he'll build a cave entrance in the study soon. He begins looking through the Wayne Tech records and discovers one site that hasn't been touched and has everything that the Red Hood gang wants. Following the pattern that he's finally starting to figure out, he knows exactly what they are planning and when. Alfred tells him that he has to try and stop it. The facility is heavily guarded, but maybe Batman can. And Bruce stops him. I don't think Batman can handle this, but I know someone else who should. So Bruce decides to make a public statement claiming to have information on the Red Hood gang. The news outlets are all up in arms. First they all thought that Bruce was dead, then he came back, then he supposedly died at another explosion, and now he's claiming that he has information on the Red Hood gang? He gives a speech about Gotham, what it is and what it means to everyone, and what it means to him. That this city has been overrun by the gangs and by Red Hood, telling everyone that their lives mean nothing. But the facility behind him, the Ace Chemicals facility, is the location of their next job. They intend to make a chemical cocktail, a radioactive poison that will eat someone's flesh, and they want to explode the cocktail in different locations around the city. Gordon lets out a long drag from his cigarette at that news. He's been watching the reveal from the outskirts, and he sees the Red Hood gang taking position in the facility, and they launch some rockets at the news crews and Bruce. He shouts, "Everyone get down!" and everything explodes around them. With the fire burning, Bruce tells Alfred, "It's time." Everyone begins to panic and run, and the GCPD is trying to run into the building, but Bruce slips in ahead of them and he can see the rest of the Red Hood gang preparing, and he realizes that this whole building is one giant dirty bomb. That's when a gun is pointed at his head and Red Hood 1 tells him, "How sweet it is that you threw us a party." Red Hood 1 has his gang lock the doors and keep the police out. He then shows Bruce the cocktail being loaded up into the trucks, getting ready to go. Bruce was dead on about their plans. "I'm honestly glad that you get to see this, Bruce. The circle that opened 15 years ago with your parents' death, and it now closes with yours, here tonight. Tomorrow we will start over with a new night, a new Gotham." You're so full of shit. You don't stand for any truth at the heart of anything. You pretend you do, talking randomness of life and the meaningless. But it's all a sham. My parents' death might have been meaningless, but their lives were not. With a grin that you can even see under his mask, Red Hood 1 prepares to pull the trigger and kill Bruce when the lights go out. No one knows what's going on. There are blocks with no power, and the GCPD is asking everyone what is happening. It's the chopper overhead that tells everyone. The lights went out in the shape of a bat. In the darkness, the Red Hood gang puts on their night vision and they watch as Batman swings in, grabbing Bruce Wayne and carrying him away. Then he gives the order. Now. Everyone wearing their night vision goggles gets blinded instantly as the lights all go back on, and then Batman swoops back in to begin fighting against the gang while Red Hood 1 steps back and he takes his helmet off for his eyes to adjust. He throws his helmet back on and he tells everyone to finish loading the trucks. They are almost ready! Batman keeps dropping each and every one of them over and over until he is cornered at the top of the stairs. He then attaches his grappling line to one of the gang members and he rides him to the bottom of the stairs, shouting, "Yeehaw!" He then retracts the gun, knocking down each and every one of the gang members on the stairs. While this is going on, Red Hood 1 lines up a shot. He has Batman dead to rights, and then a bullet ricochets off his helmet. It's one of his own gang members shooting at him, so he fires back at the gang member, shooting him in the stomach. Batman turns around and he shouts, "No!" as the facility begins to go up in smoke around him with explosions. He runs up the stairs as the the explosions knock Red Hood 1 down, and Gordon is finally able to get in as the door is blown open by the fire. Batman then kneels down by the side of the fallen gang member, bleeding out. He has a feeling that he knows who this is. Red Hood 1 blackmails normal individuals into joining their gang. Meanwhile, Red Hood 1 is shouting for everyone to grab what they can and get out of there. They need to move now. But his gang is telling him that the bay doors won't open. They won't respond. While Alfred sits at his computer, they're responding just fine. Batman pulls off the gang member's hood to see his Uncle Philip spitting up blood. He looks into his uncle's eyes, and Gordon shouts, "Freeze!" Batman turns around to see Gordon with the GCPD demanding he surrender quietly, and he stands back up. "You need to step back now." Ha! Is that so? Because Batman fires a gun loaded with a beanbag at Gordon, knocking him down just as a support beam hits the spot that he was standing. Then in the confusion, he makes a break for it as they open fire on him. He runs up to the roof where he sees Red Hood 1 making a break for a helicopter. "So long, bats!" But Batman isn't done as he sprints over the rooftop as it's crumbling beneath his feet, and he makes a leap for the ladder that Red Hood 1 is on. "Now, you idiot! You'll!" Red Hood 1 shouts just as the ladder falls apart and they both begin to fall back down into the burning chemical facility. Batman tries to get to his feet in the confusion, calling Alfred to tell him that he's in bad shape, but Red Hood 1 cracks him over the back with a steel pipe. Then he comes down to stomp on Batman's head, and Batman grabs Red Hood's foot and throws him down. Both men stand on a crumbling bridge when one of the vats beneath them launches its top off, splitting the bridge in half, and Red Hood begins to slip. As he clings on, he turns to Batman. "It's you under that hood, isn't it, my little vigilante? My, how you've evolved." Batman calls to him, "The railing won't hold. Give me your hand." And Red Hood coughs. "That's no fun. Come on, now it's over. Ha! Wouldn't you like to think so? See, it's only the beginning," the Red Hood tells him with a smile. He then lets go, smiling the whole way down. Batman shouts, but his call is lost to no one listening. Red Hood falls into the vat beneath him, and the green chemicals begin to swallow him up. Some time passes, and Alfred walks to a grandfather clock in the study that opens to the entrance to the Batcave. He walks down to Bruce sitting in front of a giant computer screen. "Are you sure that it's large enough, sir?" "Batman doesn't do subtle, Alfred." "No, I guess he doesn't, but he is clever. Such as looping an image of Batman swooping in to save Bruce Wayne on the Red Hood gang's stolen Wayne Tech night vision. That's the idea, at least." Bruce explains that no body was found for this Red Hood 1, only his mask. Everyone in the gang gave up the name Liam Distel. So then Mr. Distel is still out there, crippled by his fall into... No, that's it. They found Liam Distel's body yesterday. It was shoved into a barrel of lye in an amusement park a mile out. Lye? Exactly. Lye dissolved the better part of his remains, meaning that there is no way to tell when he was killed or placed there. So you're saying that it's all a mystery, Alfred. We know for sure that at some point in the last year, someone murdered Distel and the original Red Hood leader took his place. But what we don't know is if the man I found in the factory was a patsy or the real Red Hood leader himself. Or, for all we know, someone swapped places with the imposter on the rooftop. We have no way of knowing. All that matters is that the Red Hood gang is defeated, right? But then, at that moment, someone comes over the television. Ahem, ahem. Hello, Gotham! Hello, you and you down there. My name, in case you were wondering, is Nigma. Edward Nigma, but you can call me the Riddler, and I'm here to make you smarter. It's my mission, my calling, my duty. Riddle me this, Gotham. There are two sisters. Each gives birth to the other. Who are they? No? I'll give you a hint. One sister says, "I am the day," and the other one says, "I am the dark, dark night." Then, the entire power grid goes out, and the whole city goes dark. Let the games begin, Gotham. The Batmobile races down the streets of Gotham with the police chasing it, and just when they think they have the Batmobile, it launches itself into the sky and it skips over the police. While this is happening, Gordon and Bullock are looking at an interesting murder case. A man whose bones have grown out of control, expanding beyond his body. Batman was here looking at it, and Bullock asks if the Bat was here to clean up after his own mess. But Gordon doesn't think that that's the case. The city is in shambles. A terrorist has blacked out the whole city, and a superstorm is about to come to Gotham, hitting it hard. While this is going on, Commissioner Loeb of the GCPD is looking for this vigilante. But maybe, just maybe, lunatic or not, he is providing a little light in the darkness. Back in the Batcave, Bruce and Alfred go over the situation. The Riddler has turned off all of the lights everywhere. Gotham Light and Power are close to repairing it, but Bruce thinks this whole thing is weird. There is something wrong with this. The Riddler considers everything a riddle. what he just did to the city is yet another riddle. Riddler wants them to turn the power back on. While this is going on, Bruce is already looking at the individuals that died by the bones expanding. It's a formula that Wayne Enterprises was developing. The idea was that bones would instantly heal if any broke, allowing soldiers to push on if needed. But the version being used forces the bones to grow radically out of the subject, ripping them apart from the inside out. With this knowledge, he climbs out of the hole in the ground which leads to the Batcave to come face to face with Jim Gordon. He asks Gordon what he needs, and Gordon says it's good to see him back in town. What he did at Ace Chemical was brave. And then he goes on to apologize for his part in what happened to Bruce Wayne's parents that night. Your part? Lieutenant, I know all too well the things that you covered up. Don't ever talk to me about that night again unless you are ready for some true ugliness. Fine, but 2 of your scientists are already dead, injected with a serum that made bones grow out of their skin. There are bigger things here than you and me, Mr. Wayne. Like I said, Gordon, I have to go. As the night fell and the winds began, Bruce walked into the local Gotham University to seek out Lucius Fox to ask him about an old partner of his, the doctor that invented the bone serum. And Lucius reaches down to grab a needle, and he jabs it into Bruce's neck. What did you do? Bruce says, hitting the ground. I'm sorry, Bruce, but he's coming. Dr. Death is coming, and you're not going to be able to stop him. Then we see Dr. Death standing behind Lucius. No one will, old friend. This city's never seen anything like me, and I'm just getting started. Lucius was trying to get Bruce Wayne out of the way, but Dr. Death isn't playing anymore, and he attacks Lucius. Bruce gets back up, and he hits Dr. Death in the arm, breaking his forearm, but then it healed right back up, and Dr. Death threw Bruce across the room. Bruce, get out of here, Lucius called, and Dr. Death made the connection. Bruce Wayne? He tied Lucius up and he went looking for Bruce, but as he was poking around and calling out, Mr. Wayne, he went into the jet engine test lab and Bruce turned it on. It sucked him up quickly and Bruce ran to Lucius and got him free. The 2 men made a break for the West Corridor trying to get out, and Dr. Death appeared all rebuilt and massive in size. Leaving so soon? With one hand, he grabbed Bruce's head and he began to crush it, threatening to pop it open like a grape. And that's when he actually cracks his skull. But before he can completely squash Bruce Wayne's head, a shot goes off going through his shoulder with Jim Gordon looking down at Dr. Death from the barrel of his gun. Dr. Death makes a break for it while Bruce hits the ground and everyone runs to his side. Bruce woke up in the bed of the hospital with Alfred by his side and a handcuff on his foot. Alfred told him that his skull was fractured and that he needs rest. Bruce tries to get up, telling Alfred that he can't stop the Riddler here, and Dr. Death is now on the loose. And that's when Gordon walks in. We need to talk, Mr. Wayne. If you think I'm gonna thank you, you can go back to chasing Batman with Commissioner Loeb and company. I could, because you're right, even in the midst of a terrorist attack and the coming of a superstorm, Loeb only sees Batman because his popularity is an embarrassment to Commissioner Loeb. Now we're both trying to stop this man from killing people, and I'm telling you, we'll get this guy if we share information. But if we hide information, you're just gonna get in the way of things, and I can't allow that. You know what? You're right. I don't like you. Where did you get that trench coat you always wear, huh? I saw you that night, Gordon. When you picked me up with your partner, you were making the rounds before bringing me home, and he came out with a trench coat for you. You told me that it was a gift because you guys provided safety. People liked you. What I didn't understand that night is that that coat was a payoff, like all of your gifts. You weren't watching out for the people in that neighborhood. You were watching them suffer and die. Then Bruce makes a move, dropping Gordon to the ground, grabbing his gun, and pointing it at Gordon's face. In the alley behind the theater that night, I remember this view most vividly. Then he handed Gordon back his gun. If you want to arrest me, then do that, but I'll never trust you. Bruce Wayne walked out. As Gordon began to follow Bruce Wayne, an officer walked over to him, handing a note with a question mark on it, sharing information that Commissioner Loeb got that he was going to keep from Gordon. That night, Batman continues his investigation, riding out on the early Batboat, prepared to get this investigation going with the storm beating down on him. He walks into a lab to find that the doctor there is already being transformed as his bones are expanding, and that's when the police turn on their lights. The whole situation was a trap, and they open fire on Batman. Batman's cape and cowl begin to get shredded, and he drops tear gas on the ground before putting on his own gas mask. As he tries to call up Alfred, he realizes that they also cut off his communications. So in the gas, Batman begins beating the police down as he makes a break for his boat, and they blow up the boat. Batman is beaten and bleeding and floating in the bay where his boat was just at, and they start shooting at him again. He gets up and he runs back inside, where he runs past more bullets, eventually grabbing an oxygen tank and then jumping back in the water. While underwater, he breaks off the valve, and using the propulsion, he launches himself far, far away. As he comes up for air, a spotlight is beamed on him, and it's Jim Gordon. He tells Batman to get on board. I know it's a trap, but I wasn't a part of it. I agree with you, Batman. Batman gets on, and Gordon hands him his eyeglasses, telling him that he can take the mask off before the chemicals burn his eye. He then begins to boat back to shore. Batman asks him why he's helping, and Gordon tells him to restore balance. The return of Bruce Wayne started something. He explains that he met Bruce Wayne when he was a kid, and they brought him back to the station for his parents to pick him up. His partner and him went on their normal rounds while Bruce Wayne was in the back seat, and he saw him get a trench coat. But it was only his third week in Gotham. He was hopeful of how good things could be here, but shortly after that he walked in on the police force and Commissioner Loeb putting down bets on a dog fighting ring. They invited him to join, but Gordon told them that this was wrong. It was against the law. So they put Gordon in the pit to fight those dogs, and he won. After that day, he did things his own way, the right way. The police force sent his daughter a Rottweiler as a reminder that they'll always remember him. So he wore the jacket to remind them that he'll always remember what happened. As he comes to the end of his story, Batman tells him to stop the boat as he gets off, and Gordon sees that he was about to hit the docks. Later that night, Batman figures out where Dr. Death is and he goes in to investigate. Alfred is confused. Why would Dr. Death be in the catacombs beneath Gotham? So Batman explains, "You said yourself the deposits in the bones were too old to be identified, and in the catacombs they are so old that no one can identify them." He digs around until he in fact does find a lab, and it is here that he finds the horrible truth. Dr. Death isn't doing this for revenge. The killings are a smokescreen. He is actually making a doomsday machine with a plan to take over the whole city. In just hours, he'll bring it to its knees. "Dr. Death, sir?" Alfred asks him. "No, Alfred. The man he's working for. Nigma! Nigma is behind all of this!" Then the computers come online. "That's right, Batman. You've been making quite an impression on the city, but I'm afraid I'm about to make a bigger one. Nigma, listen to me. Thousands could die." "That's my whole point, Batman. The world is dying. The seas are rising. Resources are dwindling, and the powerful are getting more so. We all feel it. We all know it. The only weapon against the tide is intelligence." Then a wall explodes, and gallons of water begin to pour in as Nigma continues. "Unfortunately for you, Detective, you weren't smart enough to cut it this time." The water begins to rush over Batman, carrying him away and burying him in the water and the bones that they wash up. But eventually, he breaks out. It didn't defeat him. Meanwhile, back on the surface, the storm is raging hard, and Gordon is trying to get people to safety when everyone sees a massive blimp break through the clouds. They ask who it is, and the response is simple. "It's the goddamn Batman." "The Bat Blimp, sir. Really?" "Work with what you have, Alfred," Batman tells him, smirking. Lightning goes off around the blimp and it begins to damage it, but Batman has a goal, a giant weather balloon with a big question mark on it. The lightning takes on multiple engines on the Bat Blimp and his blimp begins to fall down to Earth, but Batman knows what he has to do. Alfred tells him no, it's too dangerous, but Batman tells him, "I can do this." He then leaps from the blimp, bridging the gap between it and the balloon so that he can fire his grappling gun. It lands on the balloon and he crawls up to it to come face to face with Dr. Death. Meanwhile, Gordon has tracked down Nigma to Philip Kane's old office, and as he walks in, he finds Nigma with a string tied around his finger. As he puts on his hat, he lets the string go. A giant rock falls down near Gordon, allowing the Riddler to make a grand escape. Back up on the balloon, Batman is battling with Dr. Death, telling him that he has to stop this balloon. If it goes off, thousands will die. "What about the millions that my work will save, Batman? What about them?" "He's using you, Death." Batman tries to tell him, but Batman sees the argument is pointless as he tries to use the jammer. But Dr. Death knocks it away, and it begins to slide on the ring towards the edge of the balloon. Batman shouts, "No!" and he manages to grab it, but Dr. Death grabs him. So Batman's had enough. He begins blocking all of Dr. Death's punches, breaking Death's arms and wrapping them around the railing so that he'll grow new bones, imprisoning himself. Batman then snaps off one of Death's new horns and walks into the control room, and he begins to tear it apart with the bone of Dr. Death. But Dr. Death is perfectly fine with broken bones, and he breaks his own bones to free himself. He then charges in, stabbing Batman in the chest. But Batman got an explosive on the computer console, so the whole thing explodes, throwing both Dr. Death and Batman back onto the walkway. Batman then watches as Dr. Death walks out, his newly formed bones finally killing him. Seeing no hope for the Doctor, Batman hits the ground, finally taking a breath. But beneath him in the city down below, the Gotham Electric and Power Company is finally getting the power back on, and the grid lights up as a question mark. Then twirling his cane and walking through the city, Riddler activates Riddle 2. Gordon calls up Batman, asking him if he was able to stop the device, and Batman walks in looking at it. "I almost have it. We just need to stall a little bit longer before they turn the power back on." But then it lights up with a question mark. "No, not yet!" The explosions go off all along the Gotham City Dam, and the water begins to pour in, flooding the streets. Cars, buses, and people are lifted up and carried off, and without power, the city will have no ability to pump and drain the subways. It will be flooded. Then, blimps begin to explode all over Gotham. Batman begins kicking and punching the computers. "I should have listened to you, Gordon. Damn it! There wouldn't be any death. I was wrong!" Gordon replies to him, "I hear you, but we were all at fault. We just realized it too late." As Batman watches the city streets flooding, Gordon remembers that night in the alley. The night that Bruce Wayne's parents died, and a young Bruce Wayne looked up. "Help!" now, Batman has failed twice against the Riddler, and the city is lost. Bruce wakes up slowly with no idea where he is. The last thing he remembers was the balloon he was on crash landing into the flooding streets of Gotham down below. He walks out into the main room of the house he's in and he sees a young boy, and he asks how long he's been out. The kid tells them that since the new year, it's a different kind of calendar year now. Go have a look. Bruce walks to the window to see a new kind of Gotham, one overgrown with plants, no power, and a big question mark in the middle. Welcome to the 0 year, Mr. Wayne, or at least that's what Mr. Riddler calls it. Bruce calls up Alfred to let him know that he survived, and he explained that when the balloon hit the water, he dropped his suit and then remembers crawling away and passing out. Alfred explains that the city is lost. Riddler controls everything from an unknown location, and the city is overgrown because he stole some of Dr. Isley's rapid growing formula. He rigged all of the crossings off of the island with explosives, and he surrounded the city with chemical balloons threatening to detonate them if anyone tries to get into the city. Bruce asks if everyone tried to fight him, and Alfred explains that the first people did, but very few remain that will. Meanwhile, Gordon is waiting for a special ops team to land. They found a dark area in Riddler's communications, and they are parachuting 5 individuals in. Except it didn't work, and the drones begin to spy on them. And the Riddler asks, "Do you fellas have anything to say for yourselves?" The commander of the team pulls out a briefcase. "We aren't here to fight. We're here to resolve this. We brought you $50 million, untraceable, to end this." Gordon snaps, "You cowards! Lying pieces of..." and they hold him back. Riddler responds by asking them if they like dominoes, and then he hits a building at the edge of the city with a crane, toppling it over. It hits the building right next to it, which in turn hits the one next to that, right in line with the building that Gordon and the ops guys are on. To make matters worse, Riddler programmed the Riddler bots to open fire on them if they move, to ensure they don't get off the rooftop and they suffer. But he gives them one chance. They have enough time to get off one shot, and if they hit the right one, the others won't have their motion detectors anymore. The commander starts yelling for Gordon to shoot the one in front. It has to be the leader. But then Gordon snaps at him. "Nigma's the leader. They're robots. It's that simple." Batman shouts from the distance, "The eye! Shoot the eye, damn it! The camera drone! And then none of you move! Stay perfectly still!" Gordon takes the shot, shooting the drone and dropping it, and the robots all begin to shoot at each other until they blow up. Batman then launches an explosive to knock over a water tower, providing a bridge for everyone to get off of the building, and they all flee just as it gets crushed by the nearby building. He walks over to Gordon with a smile, and Gordon welcomes Batman back. Gordon brings Batman and the ops troops back to his hideout with Lucius Fox, and they all go over the plan. Riddler challenges everyone to give him a riddle every day. If he can't solve it, the city is free, but if he can, he drops them into a pit. The big issue is that the Riddler has complete control over the city, and they need to find out where he is and where he's doing it from inside the city. If they can get him to leave his signal on the television long enough, Lucius can track it back to him, and once they know where his signal is coming from, they can move on it. So Batman tells them, "Set it up. I'll keep Nigma on the line long enough." The next day, Riddler pops up on a screen asking if anyone will challenge him. It's day 27 of the 0 year after all. Batman rides up on his dirt bike with a big bat shield attached to the front of it, and he announces, "I'll challenge you, Edward." Everyone in the city looks on in shock. Is this the Batman that they've all heard about? "You've held this city in fear too long. Your so-called 0 year ends now, tonight." "All right, Batman, riddle away." While Batman was doing this, Gordon was climbing the tower that the TV was on so that he could set up the device while Riddler was distracted. He hooks it up and Lucius begins getting the signal. Now all they need to do is stall for 19 minutes. So Batman begins. "My riddle starts with a boy." The Riddler interrupts him. "A boy? Let me guess, he was standing in the middle of a village." And Batman interrupts him back. Now, Edward, if you want me to tell this riddle, you'll have to shut up and let me tell it." So Batman continues with the riddle, telling the tale of a boy that was so smart that no one would notice. The boy got fed up and eventually was standing in the center of the village, screaming, "Look at me!" embarrassing himself in a cheap hat. Riddler sees what Batman is doing though. The hat wasn't cheap, Batman, but you want to play therapist? So the Riddler deduces that Batman is ex-military, a discarded weapon of the military looking for a purpose. And Batman laughs. Haha, not even close. Riddler has had enough, and he presses the button, opening the floor beneath Batman, dropping him. Except, it doesn't even faze Batman. Instead, he taunts Nigma, telling him that he beat his mousetrap. So, Nigma sets lions loose on him. Batman is stalling for time, so he runs over to the car, cuts the fuel line, pours it into his mouth, and then he breathes fire in their direction, pushing the lions back. The fight continues as one of them chases him into the car. He then ties it up, escaping out of the busted windshield, and using his bat shield, he beats on the other lion, putting it down. Enough time passes that Lucius tracks the location of the signal, and then Riddler hits Batman with another riddle instead of being defeated. "Everyone's attracted to me, everyone falls for me. Eventually, even you, Batman. Who am I? Gravity." And then he drops cars down on Batman. But just as he's about to get smashed, Gordon opens up a nearby escape hatch and they escape together. So Gordon and the Spec Ops guys begin moving through the underground while Batman breaks into the building and moves towards the elevator shafts. As Gordon is going through the tunnel, the commander of the Spec Ops team explains that they just need to find Nigma so he can radio in an airstrike at that exact location. Batman overhears them talking about a RIP code, and that makes him realize Nigma isn't in this building. He tried to call everyone and tell them, but his comms are blocked as the Riddler bots and the Riddler on a screen tell Batman that he failed again. First in the catacombs, then in the balloon, and now he's hanging here by a thread at the mercy of Nigma. Batman throws explosives at the bots and then he jumps onto the floor trying to call Gordon to tell him to cut off the comms, but it's not working. Riddler is jamming the comms. So Batman grabs one of the Riddler bots and he jumps out the window, falling to the ground far below them until he grabs a drone to slow his fall. Meanwhile, back in Lucius's van, a Riddler bot arrives and threatens to kill him until Batman tears it in two. The problem is, Nigma just cut off all communications in the city, so they can't call Gordon or the Spec Ops team. And if they radio in the RIP code, Nigma's going to get it and he'll get to call it in. And Nigma's lined the tunnels with explosives, so that when they activate the RIP code, Nigma will steer it towards those explosives, sinking the city. Since they can't stop Gordon or the Spec Ops team in time, Batman and Lucius need to go over the data again. They need to try and figure out where the Riddler is, and Batman only has time for one guess. He figures he has 40 minutes before the bombing, and he heads off to his single guess. He leaves a message for Alfred, letting him know that he's right. Batman needs to mean something good. He's already failed against the Riddler twice, and he's trying again. But maybe that's what Batman needs to stand for. Not winning, but failing and getting back up. Knowing that he'll fail 1,000 times and refusing to give up. He walks into the dark bay and demands to know if he's right. Did he figure it out? Is the Riddler here? And in front of Batman is the Sphinx from the museum, and the Riddler steps out, clapping for the Dark Knight. How? The pattern bounced like a coil, like an Egyptian board game, so the answer has been here all along. Now turn it off, Nigma, before millions die. Ha, because you say so? So he activates a series of lights and trip lasers. The real game is just beginning. He tells Batman that he's going to ask him 12 questions, and if Batman answers them all, he'll turn off the communications blackout. Batman knows that the game is rigged though, that's too many questions to answer before the planes bomb the city. And if he sets off a trip laser, it'll set off the balloons around the city. But the Riddler continues with, "Riddle me this, Batman." Meanwhile, Gordon, Lucius, and the Commander are trying to figure out how to signal those planes to stop. The answer has to be simple, so Gordon gets a flare gun and he intends to climb to the highest point to signal them. Riddle 1. I am a house without the head of head knitted deep within the trees. A head that lies without its eyes stitched silently to tease. What am I, Batman? Batman looks at the Riddler bots next to him, and he can see their motion tracking, and he answers, a louse. The answer is correct, and he steps forward with 14 minutes remaining. Gordon begins to climb the tower nearby, but as he climbs, he drops the flare gun. Riddle 2. I have a single choice, 1,000 throats. I sell my tail for peanuts. But then, a bee. Batman cuts him off with the answer. Gordon makes it to the top, and he can see the jets coming in for the bombing, so he starts looking for a way to signal them. Riddle 3. My greatest strength is that I know my worth. I hug myself so tightly at every birth. A blade. But Batman got it wrong. Then he begins to step forward, setting off all of the trip lasers, walking towards Nigma as he tries to gloat, because the motion tracking isn't tracking him. Riddler's signal is being blocked by Lucius, sitting outside with a giant penny as a conductor. The same penny from the front of Wayne Enterprises. While Batman grabs the Riddler, Gordon found a way to signal the planes to stop. He painted a bat signal onto a spotlight, and he's shining it at them. So they take another lap to see what they should do. Batman keeps hitting the Riddler, and he demands to know how to turn the city back on. How does he end 0 year? So the Riddler shows him an electrode on his chest tied to his heartbeat. The only way to reset the city is to hit someone's heartbeat with 1,000 volts of electricity. The Riddler doesn't believe even Batman can survive that. Batman takes it off of Riddler's chest and he kicks him in the face, knocking him out. While this has been going on, the planes have been told to continue with their bombing. Ignore this signal. Batman walks over to the computers and using a defibrillator, he shocks himself with the full 1,000 volts. He hits the ground as the computer is still reading. No signal, no signal. And then he wakes back up to Alfred giving him chest compressions. It worked. The city turned back on. The jets reported in, and they head back home. Everyone across Gotham is cheering because Batman did it. He saved the city. Batman asks Alfred how he was even here, and Alfred explains that he was already in the city. He followed Lucius to this location because, as he told Batman, he might not agree with him, but he'll always be there to patch him up. The city was saved by Batman, and they got to work quickly making Gotham a happy place again. Riddler was one of the first inmates in the new Arkham Asylum facility, where he was bound and suspended to prevent him from doing anything else. And in the end of it all, Bruce went back to work at Wayne Enterprises, taking control of his company.
And there you have it, what I think is one of the inspirations for the Batman movie. But what do you think? Am I right, am I wrong? Because I really think it was Long Halloween in this. But let me know in the comments down below what your thoughts are, and I'll catch you next time right here at Comicstorian. Oh, and don't forget, like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell, because you know every Monday we bring you one of these videos. Thank you, and see you next time.